Rev up your engines! Keith Carr says, here is a crappy dealer story. Old couple down the street had a Ford Falcon with 250,000 kilometers, well taken care of. They babied the car. It didn't start, so they walked to the Ford dealer because I was on vacation. Well, obviously he's a mechanic. So first the Ford dealer charged them $200 to tow the car 500 meters from their house to the dealer. Then they said the car was old and the engine was beyond repair, they should buy a new one. So they left the Falcon at the dealership. So I went out and checked it out on their lot. Turns out it only had a bad alternator, so I fixed it for them. What is wrong with these dealerships? Are they scumbags? I'd like to know how these people are allowed to have dealerships. It's unfortunate, but there's a lot of crooks out there, period. I've seen guys at dealerships, they'll tell people that the engine is blown and it's bad battery, a bad starter, and then they turn around and sell it. Those older people are lucky that they have you, and they were just unlucky that you were on vacation when they took it over there, and they tried to sell them all kinds of stuff, and then tried to sell them, and you said they tried to sell them a new 2020 car instead. Oh, buy this. It's unfortunate, but that's how the world is these days. What, those people are 80 years old, taking advantage of old people like that. It's kind of disgusting that people are like this, but it's a big, nasty world out there. That's why I'm here, to help people out. And lucky that guys like you, you're an honest mechanic. You went, put an alternator on it and fixed it for them. There are still honest guys out there, yes, but unfortunately, these dealerships with millions of dollars of overhead, they got to make money, and they just do dishonest things like that. It's kind of disgusting. I agree entirely, but that's kind of the way our society's going. Everybody's out to make a buck as fast as they can. They think they're going to get famous, and then they're going to buy an island after they're millionaires, you know? Come on, everybody should just realize there's enough for everybody. Don't be greedy and be fair. But there's a lot of crooks out there. Now, there were crooks in my grandfather's day, too. My grandfather's a mechanic, and he told me horror stories about work down the street at garages. One of the guys, this was in Lewiston, New York. He had a garage that was 4 blocks down on Main Street, and he ended up getting arrested by the state troopers because he was scamming people, so they put a state trooper incognito with just the regular clothes, sold them repairs they didn't need, and then they didn't even do the work they said they did, and he ended up in jail. So, I mean, people try to stop it, but unfortunately, there's not enough people stopping this stuff, and there's guys like that out there. And unfortunately, some of them work at dealerships. Well, Subaru's in a hot spot now. Subaru recalls 875,000 vehicles because of engine issues and rear suspension issues. Now, it covers more than 466,000 cross-track SUVs from 18 to 19 and Impreza cars from 2017 through 2019. Stalling occurs from electrical problems and a problem with the ignition system not going right and causes short circuit and cause a fire. And the suspension issue, that covers 408,000 2018 to 19 Crosstreks and 2019 Foresters. Rear stabilizer bars can come loose and fall off, so if you're following one, the bolt might whack into your car, which would be a bad thing if you're on a motorcycle. It could knock you out and kill you, of course, and then you could lose stability of the car. Now, starting May 14th, they always wait a while, Subaru dealers said they're going to tighten the bolts and replace any missing bolts that fell off. If I had a car and the bolts were falling off of it, I would want them to replace the entire car, and I wouldn't buy one in the first place. The quality of some of these things, they're hustling too much to build them as fast as they possibly can. They're obviously making mistakes, not building them correctly, and then you as a consumer get stuck with it. Beware if you own one of those Subarus. It might stall out, or pieces might fall out and hit people behind you. And then you might hit something because when you go to corner, the stabilizer bolt is gone, so the stabilizer bar is just going to be bouncing around, and you won't have a stable car. Canadian Mark says, as a first car, how about an Acura EL? I'm thinking about buying an Acura EL with 90,000 miles. Seems solid. The frame had no major rust. Oil changes were done when they were supposed to. Now, there's quite a bit of rust under the car on the driver's side, but almost no rust on the frame. What do you think? They can be excellent cars. It's an older car. It's your first car. And for $1,500 Canadian, that's not much. Cars go for a lot more in Canada. Take it to a mechanic like me. Have him check the actual frame and the undercarriage. Those are not full frame cars. Those are what's called unibody construction. If he says the unibody is rusting out, said one side is and one side isn't, but if it's really rusting on that side, and he says it's not going to be structurally sound, don't buy it. They rust up there because of all the salt they put on the road in the winter. And if it is rotting away, you don't want it. A good mechanic can tell you in 5 minutes, crawling under there, putting it up on lift and say, okay, it's structurally sound, or if he hits it with his hand or a hammer and it goes through and it's rotting away, don't even think about buying. It's a waste of money if it's a rust bucket. Otherwise, if he says it's okay, it could be a good deal, but don't buy a rust bucket. Especially that old, it will just start to crumble like an old piece of cake that's been sitting in the sun too long. And you don't want to buy something that's going to crumble apart, even for $1,500. Alex Sonon says, Scotty, love your channel. I have a 2007 Honda Fit, 100,000 kilometers. The right-hand side of the front leaks coolant when it's hot on a long journey and I have to add coolant. We don't see any cracks in the reservoir. Everything looks fine. What could it be? Start with the simplest thing on earth. If you don't have a pressure testing machine, go on Amazon and buy one. You can get them cheap enough, $80, $90. Or if you don't want to do that, go to a mechanic and let him pressure test it. But most mechanics charge $140 an hour. You might as well buy the kit yourself. You can use it for the rest of your life on every car you ever buy. Pump it up, see what's leaking out. It could be all kinds of stuff. A loose clamp, plastics cracking, lots of things. But let's say you pump it up and you don't see any leaks. Unfortunately, it could be the head gasket starting to leak externally, that it's leaking from the inside of the engine and it's dripping out the side of the engine. Now, if it is that, and it runs okay, I've had very good luck with a Bars leak sealer, because if you only have an external leak between the coolant on the head gasket and the outside, there's not the pressure of the engine firing. Big explosions, thousands of pounds per square inch pressure as the gasoline burns up. You're only talking about the sealant of coolant from the gasket to the outside world. And that's only the pressure of the cooling system, which is, 15, 17 PSI instead of 1,000. A lot of times that bar sealer can work if the head gasket's leaking only externally. If it's leaking internally, then you got, thousands of PSI, the gasoline explodes when it fires, and generally no sealer is going to fix that stuff. Tulos Pucha says, I know Land Cruisers and LX570 engines are indestructible, but what about the electronics? Are there problems with them? Their electronics are really excellent too. Well, Lexus and Toyota vehicles have very good electronics on them. The only thing I can personally say that I've ever done on those things is change alternators. Some of them have 200,000-300,000 miles. Finally, the alternator wears out. But strangely enough, I can go to AutoZone and get a decent price on one because they're very similar to the Toyota ones, and they often have them for maybe $150 with a lifetime warranty. No, they're well-made cars. Todd says, I got an 04 Mustang V6. It doesn't start. Any reason why? It's only got 96,000 miles. There's lots of reasons the car won't start. I could talk for hours on that, but what you to do is watch my video. Fixing a car that cranks but doesn't start up, Scotty. Type that in, watch that video. Could be as simple as your battery's low. If you can jump start it and it starts, replace the battery. But you can lose fuel, you can lose spark, you can lose all kinds of things. In that video, it shows you all kinds of stuff. For example, get a can of starting fluid, take the air filter off, spray it inside as someone cranks. If it starts and dies, odds are your fuel pump's gone out. All those tests are in my video though. Fixing a car that cranks but doesn't start up, Scotty. Type that in, watch it, you'll figure out what's wrong. Warhead says, BMW, Mercedes or Audi, which is the least worst of the three? If you're talking about modern day cars, I have to say Mercedes, because the BMWs are plastic crap, they break all the time. The Audis are even worse. And the Mercedes, they still make some decent cars. You just don't want to buy their high end like S600 or anything like that, the super high ones, because they drop like a stone. The resale values, they cost a fortune to fix, the parts cost a fortune, and if you could get a German-made Mercedes, they're still excellently made cars, so I would have to see out of those. That said, I wouldn't buy any of them. John Celeste says, are you in Lewiston? Well, if you get in a time machine, yeah, I was in Lewiston. That's where I learned how to fix cars. That was the video that I made the other day about my history of Scotty. That was my father's old garage that is now being turned into a coal-fired pizza restaurant, and the garage next door was turned into an art gallery. America's becoming gentrified in a lot of these small villages. That's how they make their money. They're totally gentrified. And I was in Lewiston for 30 minutes. I was filming a video. We were visiting my mother in Buffalo. I drove down there to make a video of the old gas station and saw what had happened to the town. Times change. Like I said in the video, they say you can't go home. You can go home, but your house is going to look a lot different. DeAndre Martin says, 2020 Honda Elite versus 2020 Ford Explorer ST. Oh, you want something's going to last long and have less problems? Go Honda all the way. Now, the Explorers were okay throughout their history, but now they got those stupid EcoBoost V6 twin-turbo GDI engines that have problems, the water pumps that are timing chain driven, that if they break, the engine will be destroyed. The Honda's a 10 times the vehicle of that Ford. It will last a lot longer, have less problems. They're just, I wouldn't even compare the two myself. NDI Production said, Scotty, I got a 2022 Lamborghini Urus. It takes 3 gallons of miles. I'm wondering what should I do? Drive slower. Oh, you know, the gigantic engines. It's probably just the way you're driving. I had years ago for a week, Shelby Cobra GT500 that Ford gave me with 666 horsepower. That's what I got, exactly 3 miles a gallon. It was rated at, I don't know, 14, 15 or something. I got 3 because I drove it like a maniac. But then again, it was Ford's gasoline. They paid the insurance, the gas, everything, so I didn't care. You buy a car like that and you care about gas mileage, you got screws in your head. You got screws in your head anyways when buying one of those things. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.